Mr. Weitz, just recently you assumed the position of European Parliament Rapporteur for North Macedonia. You had one meeting now, a committee hearing, where one of the guests was Foreign Minister Timčo Mucunski. How do you assess the current state of affairs in the country and the inability to open negotiation clusters because of not finishing the task with the constitutional changes?
First of all, I welcome that there is a government that provides stability and that has a majority that is able to provide also far-reaching decisions. I think this is a good development. And once again, it's a combination of several parties also reflecting the ethnic composition of the country. I think this is very important. And it's a recipe that has led the country to solve conflicts in a political and diplomatic way rather than in violent way, which is a big heritage of the country. In relation to the accession talks, when I started to work on accession, there were two front runners. It was my neighboring and second home country, Slovenia, and North Macedonia, back then only Macedonia. And in fact, I very much regret that today we have the situation that North Macedonia is still not advancing in the talks. And this is also, I would say, due to mistakes that we've done on the EU side. I highly regret that the decision-making process within European Union, also in the intermediate steps of accession, need to be done with a unanimous vote in the Council. I think this is something we from the European Union side should heavily rethink. And yes, in the current situation, the only way out is to find diplomatic solutions with the neighbor Bulgaria, diplomatic solutions in terms of guarantees that once North Macedonia fulfills the requirement or demands on the table today, will not be faced with additional requirements on a monthly or weekly basis.
Do you see any kind of possibility that what the new Macedonian government is hoping for, pushing for, is some kind of constitutional changes with delayed effect? Do you think that this is feasible?
I have some question marks there, maybe not even from the political side, but rather from the legal side, whether this is really a strategy that will be applicable and will be doable. I would rather advocate to seek to find other solutions to actually ensure that the demands when it comes to protection of minorities, and this is not only related to Bulgaria, because protection of minorities should be in the core of also within European states decision-making processes. It's a highly important policy for the country to move on in general, that these legislations could be done also via an ordinary legislative process with big majorities for the moment to show also to the Bulgarian side that North Macedonia is ready to move on these questions. I think this is the more applicable solution, but this is something your government also has to negotiate with Bulgaria.
You mentioned now in your recent public appearances, you also talking about some kind of guarantees. I'm quoting, there is a need of possibility for some legal guarantees from Bulgarian side that after the constitutional changes there won't be any new requests. Do you think that this is viable? Who can guarantee that something won't happen in 5 from 10 years from now?
We are all used to signing contracts to each other, to seriously underline our commitments that we have been signing in contracts. And as it is in every other democratic state, governments can change, majorities can change, and it is good so. So the absolute 100% guarantee is not something any country can provide for another 10 or 15 years, but there could be bilateral agreements that show that the requests have been fulfilled and the Bulgarian government, so once we have one, because this is part of the problem, or the president, if he in his legal responsibilities is allowed to, can sign exactly this kind of agreement, bilateral agreement, and this would give, I think, a good set of guarantees that there will not be another bilateral demand be put on the table. But again, I think the better solution is that we in the European Union change the method and that we do not rely on unanimous decision making for the intermediate steps for the accession process. Yes, to start accession talks, yes, but also to have the final agreement to allow a country into the European Union. There we need unanimity, but not for the process in between.
Have you spoken about this idea with your Bulgarian colleagues, MPs from Bulgaria? Because I just heard them, they are very tough on their positions concerning the issue that is pending between the two countries.
It also depends to whom you speak, and there's also reason and reasonable colleagues that have a vital interest on establishing good relations, on establishing good economic relations, but also personal relations, and that also understand that in this current geostrategical situation, we need stability in the region, we need to look into prosperity for the whole region, we need to build on what we have in common rather on what divides us. So I also see with Bulgarian colleagues that there is some advancement when it comes to proposals, how to further move on. I must say I regret that the Bulgarian debate has been so loaded with emotions for so many years, and that might also be one of the reasons why it's not so easy for Bulgarian colleagues, at least in public, to, well, let's say, give up the old communication frames, but I see some progress there.
But not among all of them, I guess.
No, there's a big differences also between different political groups, and as you have in Bulgaria, also we have in Austria and other European countries also radical voices that share radical opinions.
When you put aside the situation with Bulgaria, according to you, from your perspective, what are the other challenges that North Macedonia is facing now in terms of EU integration?
North Macedonia has been a front runner when it comes to decision-making processes on the European acquis, so the legislative side. Where I see a lot of room to improve is when it comes to implementation of legislation. In many cases, you see that there's actually good legislation in place, but when it comes to make it felt for citizens, to allow citizens to see the changes on the ground, I think there's room for improvement. But also in the complex set of good neighborly relations, relations to Bulgaria, relations to also Greece are sensitive, relations to Albania are sensitive. So North Macedonia is in an environment and in a geographical context where good neighborly relations are just key for the further progress. And there I see, well, I saw some worrying statements of Vrm in the election campaign, but I must say since they took office and took responsibility for the country, the statements have been mildened, and I see possibilities to yes, get some good progress there. Maybe concretely on Corridor 8 and Corridor 10. This is the two corridors that are very important for economic development of the region, but also for, in case needed, the military transportation capacities. I think this is two overarching interests of the neighboring countries, the European Union, and I hope also of North Macedonia. We need to work on this.
In the past 2.5 years since the Russian aggression over Ukraine, the buzz phrase was that there is a new momentum in the enlargement. Is this really true? Is European Union really decided that it needs new member states, especially from the countries from the Western Balkans?
I can definitely confirm that also in countries and member states of the European Union that have been skeptical to enlargement. Today there's a clear commitment that we need to engage. I also see that EU institutions are putting much more capacity, resources into the region. I think the message has been understood, and I think every politician, reasonable politician within the European Union now knows where Western Balkan is, and that this is the inner yard of European Union and not somewhere at the outskirts where Europe ends. So yes, definitely yes. The little downside for the North Macedonian situation is the bilateral issues with Bulgaria, and in this case, yes, there's some positive support from many sides of the European Union, but also the pressure on Bulgaria to really move on when it comes to good neighborly relations has not been as strongly upheld as it was for a few years before, also because we need to stand together and guarantee the solidarity between EU member states when it comes to a unified position on sanctions on Russia and on support to Ukraine. So let's say the focus of attention has been moving a bit more in this direction. So there's a plus and a clear supportive situation for North Macedonian accession, but there's also this little downside that the pressure on Bulgaria within European Union has not been upheld as strongly as it was before the invasion of Putin's army into Ukraine.
Mr. Weiss, thank you very much for this interview for 360.
You're welcome.